Yo, what's good? And welcome to Kinda Funny Games Daily for May 23rd, 2022. I'm your host, Jan Garcia, and joining me is Krista Yang of the Kit and Krista podcast. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. So, Krista, in case people have been living under a rock, who are you? What do you do? What are you about?
Yeah, so I'm Krista. As you said, I am the co-host for the Kit and Krista podcast, the Krista part of it, in case that wasn't super obvious. Kit and I were both formerly at Nintendo. I worked there for over 14 years, Kit for over 13 years. So we've collectively been in the gaming industry for quite the lengthy period. Earlier this year, we actually ended up leaving Nintendo and starting our own podcast and show. So we've been doing that since February of this year, and it's been awesome. It's been so much fun. We've been able to talk very freely now about everything that we love and that we don't love, and we've been looking forward to sharing our insider stories with everybody each and every week. So it's been great.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to the show. It's like my go-to podcast now, but I'm like a
Oh
little
my
bit
gosh.
behind. So like no spoilers for like the modern era, but I'm listening to, the episodes, and I listened to them a bit too when I was marathon training, which really came in handy because that's like all I would do is listen to podcasts. So I actually heard y'all's first episode like while I was running like in Santa Monica, and it was
Oh
like
my
the why
gosh.
we left Nintendo and like all that, and I was like running through it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to like hear all this information and insight.
Yeah.
I kind of already get a sense of what makes your show special, but like what is your elevator pitch? Like what do you feel like is unique to the podcast and by extension the show, because you also have a YouTube channel on top of the podcast as well.
That's right. Yeah. I think the thing that makes our show sort of unique is that we do have sort of this insider's perspective on the industry, just because we've been inside Nintendo for so long. So we do have sort of this like insider knowledge, and even now when we're talking about stuff like the news, or we talk about non-Nintendo things on the podcast and on the show, it's really fun to sort of put that perspective into some of those other areas as well. So that's one thing that is really unique to us, and a lot of other people might also remember me and Kit from our time at Nintendo hosting Nintendo Minutes. So that's really what the Kit and Krista show, which is live on our YouTube channel every week, is sort of an extension of, is that we basically have, sort of the freedom now to play any games that we want, to feature any content that we want, and that's been really fun as well.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to have your insight here today because we got a lot of great stories to get through for
Love it.
y'all, including EA maybe looking to sell. Spider-Man could have been an Xbox exclusive, TikTok's gaming prospects, and more, because this is Kinda Funny Games Daily. We're each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. If you're watching, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindafunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or listen later on podcast services around the globe by searching for Kinda Funny Games Daily. Use Epic creator code Kinda Funny on all Epic Store and Epic in-game purchases like Rocket League and Fortnite to help support Kinda Funny. And to be part of the show, head over to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where bronze members or above get to write in, and silver members or above get the show ad-free along with the exclusive daily post show. Some housekeeping for y'all. A new episode of Kinda Funny Xcast is up with SnowBikeMike and one Kahlief Adams talking about what modern sports games are missing compared to the greats of NBA Street and SSX Tricky. You can catch that on youtube.com/kindafunnygames or on podcast services when you search for Kinda Funny Xcast. Screencast is popping off in a big way this week as well. Later today, we will have our reactions to the new Mission Impossible trailer and our review of Chippendale Rescue Rangers tomorrow. We will have our Better Call Saul Final Season Part 1 review featuring Jake Baldino. And this Friday, we will have our review of the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi featuring Saige Ryan. I got tired just reading through that. That's a whole lot of content that y'all got to queue up and check out, because I bet it's all going to be awesome. So make sure you catch up on all of that coming up on youtube.com/kindafunny or on your favorite podcast services where you can search for Kinda Funny Screencast. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Anonymous and Fargo Brady. Today we're brought to you to you by MeUndies, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin what is and forever will be the Roper Report. It's time for some news. We have 5 stories today.
Baker's dozen.
Starting with EA reportedly looking to sell or merge. This comes from Ethan Gatch over at Kotaku. The video game market is consolidating like never before, the article reads, and Electronic Arts is scrambling like everyone else. The Battlefield and FIFA maker recently pursued a merger with NBC Universal and also held potential acquisition talks with Disney, Apple, and other companies, according to a new report by Puck. While a deal isn't currently in the works, it doesn't sound like EA plans to give up anytime soon. Quote, in recent years, as media companies have taken a greater interest in rapidly growing gaming industry, CEO Andrew Wilson and Electronic Arts have held talks with a number of different potential suitors, including Disney, Apple, and Amazon. Sources knowledgeable of those talks wrote Puck's veteran media reporter Dylan Byers. Several sources familiar with these talks say EA has been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Microsoft Activision deal. Others say that EA is primarily interested in a merger arrangement that would allow Wilson to remain as chief executive of the combined company. But it was apparently a deal with NBC Universal that got the farthest along. According to Byers, Comcast CEO Brian Roberts was looking to spin off the entertainment conglomerate into a separate entity with EA, with one version of the deal leaving current EA CEO Andrew Wilson in charge of the new mega business. Negotiations eventually fell apart over price, however. We don't comment on rumors and speculation. According to M&A, EA spokesperson said, and, the et cetera of not commenting on rumors. The article continues. Over the past year, there's been a frenzy of video game studio acquisitions, one that sent into overdrive in January after Grand Theft Auto publisher Take-Two announced it buying Zynga for $12.7 billion. Microsoft announced it was planning to buy Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Sony followed weeks later with a deal to buy the studio behind Destiny 2, Bungie, for $3.6 billion, a price some analysts consider massively inflated and a possible sign of a new mad rush to consolidate gaming among industry's biggest players. In an earnings call in February, Andrew Wilson implied the company was focused on making acquisitions rather than being acquired. As evidence, EA spent $5 billion over the last year buying up studios to increase its size, but now it appears the publisher has been aggressively pursuing other ways of scaling up. Byers reports that Wilson approached Disney as recently as March in pursuit of what sources described as a more meaningful relationship than licensing deals. This news comes as EA has lost or abandoned some of its biggest existing licensing titles, while the publisher recently revealed 3 new Star Wars games currently in production, including Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order that's rumored to release in 2023. Its exclusivity deal with Disney for the Star Wars license isn't going to be renewed when it expires in 2023. That's a lot of competitors like Quantic Dream and Ubisoft to announce their own big Star Wars projects. EA also revealed last week it's ending its similar 10-year exclusivity deal with FIFA and beginning in 2023 that will rebrand its blockbuster soccer franchise as EA Sports FC. So a lot to take in there, a lot to unpack. And that was the first thing I thought of too when I read through this, where I'm like, didn't they just say they were not interested in being acquired? Of course, this is still, still speculation, still rumors. But what do you think about the idea of EA being acquired and the general consolidation of the industry that we're sort of seeing?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting, and especially on the heels of the FIFA story last week, where it just seemed like there was sort of this shift coming in how EA wants to do business with other licensees, with other brands. In terms of this acquisition stuff, it just seems like that is sort of the go-to that these studios are doing nowadays to. It's almost like, habitual now. Like, it's like, who's next with the next acquisition deal? When I was thinking about this too, when I was reading through the article a bit, it seemed like they were more interested. EA is more interested in maybe a merger than than being acquired. So I wonder sort of which part of the scale they fall on. If it's really they want to be acquired by somebody, or they want to look to merging or acquiring something for themselves that's not a licensing deal, because I can see that they might have had maybe a bad taste in their mouth after what happened with FIFA.
Yeah, you mentioned the idea of this sort of being the way of the world at this point, where we're just waiting for whatever the next big story is for these acquisitions. What do you think this does for the industry as a whole? Like, we've had like a lot of conversations on here and across our shows about like whether it's good or bad or it's sort of neutral, because at the end of the day, as long as, the games are getting funded, it doesn't like hit the consumer as much. What's sort of your stance on that overall as we're seeing that move more in the industry? Or do you think it's just like a spike that just seems to be happening and that it's not that different than how business has been done in the past?
Yeah, it is pretty interesting to see, like you were saying, it's like sort of the norm now versus versus something that is a bit more unique, these kinds of mergers and acquisitions. For me personally, I think the most important thing is for a lot of these studios to like maintain their unique voice and unique brand. And I would hate to have sort of a big parent company take that away from some of these studios. That's one thing that we saw, kind of a lot at Nintendo, and Nintendo's not like out there acquiring all these different studios or anything like that. But when they do bring somebody into the Nintendo umbrella, like, with Next Level Games, for example, it's very carefully curated in a way where it's like Nintendo knows that a studio like Next Level will follow the Nintendo brand. And so they, in some degree, sort of lose a little bit of their own brand identity and uniqueness by joining this bigger company. So I think while it's nice that these, we have the funding and the industry feels like it's healthy when these kinds of business deals happen, there is sort of this like little thing in the back of my head saying like, I hope that all of these studios don't become sort of bland because they're now under like these sort of bigger, more like corporate, umbrella companies.
Yeah, I think we're definitely kind of moving into that era too of like what we see in a lot of, I think, just consumer goods in general, where there's that whole saying of you go to the grocery store and it's like the illusion of having a lot of choice, where you see all these different brands, but they're all underneath like one brand, and you're like, oh, I like this one over the other one. It's like, guess what? It's all Pepsi.
It's
or
all
it's
the
all
same.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So I definitely have that concern as well. I think your mention of like the flavor and the identity is so crucial, where I think it's kind of like the kind of gap we're seeing, right? Where at least like a lot of times in past years, past generations, acquisitions have been really exciting. As someone who is like covering the industry and is a fan of like all these different companies, I'm like, oh, this is such a great pairing, or this makes sense, right? Like I love the Next Level comparison, where I'm like, yep, this has been like so long. It's like so much that I almost thought that was already a studio that was underneath.
Thing, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, was that not official? I thought you guys were together. So I think those have always been really exciting, and the sort of shift we're seeing, because people always debate this too. They're like, well, don't you want this as like a PlayStation fan or as an Xbox fan or whatever? And I'm like, to a degree, I think there is a moment where it gets like, I'm really worried about like the vanishing of the third party, because I think the third party offers, I guess, kind of like a cohesive, like neutral space, right? There's like different identities, different niches, and like, yeah, I really hope to see that it doesn't go away, but we'll see what ends up happening with this. I am an EA fan, I guess. I know a lot of people don't like EA for numerous reasons, some of which are definitely valid, but I definitely I'm a longtime FIFA player, and I really like what they do with EA Originals, even though there hasn't been a lot of, I think, noise coming out of that super recently, but I've always really enjoyed those projects. But before we move on, like, what about you? What's your kind of EA background, and to what degree are you a fan of their projects?
Yeah, I definitely am a fan as well. Like all the EA games that I've played seem really high quality, seem like they're produced really well. So I want to see them succeed. They're obviously a big, one of the big pillars of the gaming industry. So you want to see, them do well. And so I hope that whatever they're planning is going to like, help them have a solid future. And you were saying a little bit about like sort of losing this like third party neutral space. I think this is where maybe some of the indie studios and indie games that we're seeing can come and like really fill in that gap a little bit, as we're seeing some of these changes happening with mergers and acquisitions. And so hopefully that gives those smaller studios a little bit of breathing room to sort of fill in that gap if needed.
Yeah, for sure. I like some people in the chat outrun mentioning everyone is an EA fan to some degree. I think that's a little true, right? Because they work on so many different projects that even if you have some beefs with like some of the bigger picture stuff, like you probably have hit up some of those games and had a good time. People in chat mentioning games like Lost in Random, mentioning Unravel, of course. Like you can't really see, but I have like a little Yarny here in this this weird like Xbox third party indie corner I have, which I feel like is a little telling in itself what I got behind me here. But yeah, obviously, again, always want to see what's best for the company in terms of like financial prosperity, but also like creative vision. But we'll just see. I think this is also too like the idea of it being more of a merger or these being like really big companies that sort of have like big entertainment roles outside of games speaks to games becoming a lot more popular and a lot more mainstream. Like companies are paying attention to the fact that, hey, there's some money to be made here. Like people are playing games. There is that interest there. So I think that also speaks to kind of like that mainstream movement as games continue to age, because it's such a young medium, which is really weird compared to like everything else that, exists in entertainment.
Yeah, totally.
But continuing on, let's talk about story number 2. Xbox turned Marvel down, leading to Spider-Man on PS4. Executive reveals. This comes from Chris Scullion over at VGC, who writes in an excerpt from Stephen L. Kent's 2021 book, The Ultimate History of Video Games Volume 2, as spotted on Reset Era. Executive Vice President and Head of Marvel Games, Jay Ong, explains how the company cut its earlier deal with Activision short in search of a better partnership. According to Ong, Marvel Games wasn't happy with the quality of the Spider-Man games being published by Activision, and the two companies mutually agreed to terminate their licensing deal early. Ong said that when the deal was made to walk away, Activision asked, "What are you going to do with this IP after you get it back?" To which Ong replied, "I'm going to find a better home for it." According to Ong, Activision's reply was, "Good luck finding your unicorn." Ong said Marvel Games went to both Xbox and PlayStation to see if either of them would be interested in forming an exclusive partnership, asking them, "We don't have any big console deals with anyone right now. What would you like to do?" Microsoft's strategy, Ong recalls, was to, quote, focus on its own IP, and as such, it decided to pass on the offer. Sony, however, was more receptive. "I sat down with these two execs from PlayStation third party, Adam Boyes and John Drake, in August 2014 in a conference room in Burbank," a shout to the LA area. That was me, not the article. "I said, we have a dream that this is possible, that we could beat Arkham and have one game at least, and maybe multiple games that could drive adoption to your platform." Sony reportedly responded by offering to make a AAA PlayStation exclusive Spider-Man game and handed the project to Insomniac, which was independent at the time but was considered one of Sony's most important partners. The resulting game, Marvel Spider-Man, was widely critically acclaimed and reportedly went on to sell more than 20 million copies, with its spin-off Miles Morales selling a further 6.5 million. In the US, Spider-Man is now one of Sony's most popular, successful video game releases ever in terms of dollar sales. Insomniac recently announced Spider-Man 2 with a teaser trailer during the PlayStation Showcase presentation in September 2021. It's also expanding its relationship with Marvel via an in-development Wolverine game. Spider-Man sequel is due to release on PlayStation in 2023, which I still always forget that was actually a date that got put out there.
Yeah,
like, I remember
me too.
doing PS I Love You and like Greg being like, "Yeah, they said 2023 for that," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so soon."
That's next year, it's coming up.
Right.
Yeah,
I know. I guess that'll be next year's conversation, right? I'm like, do we think this is coming out? Like, how's this going? But
I know, right? Exactly. Delay or what?
Paint me a word picture, Krista. What would Microsoft Spider-Man have looked like?
Oh man, I don't think it would be as good. I think these Spider-Man games are so amazing because of Insomniac. So I wonder if a Microsoft Spider-Man game would have the same, as I like to call, vibe as a Insomniac PlayStation Spider-Man game. So I'm actually kind of glad, because this is one of my absolute most favorite franchises now. I replay, the Miles Morales Spider-Man game at holidays now, just because it's such a great game. It's so much fun just to like play these games, kind of over and over again, and it's become sort of like a routine for me. So I wouldn't want to have it any other way, I guess. I like it. I like them the way they are.
If we follow the whole idea of multiple like universes, there's a universe where this game exists. Like,
that's true, right?
If I could hop between universes, I would just play alternate game releases. Like, that YouTube channel would blow up. Can you imagine? But yeah, like I love the mention of that holiday vibe too. Are there other games that you find yourself reaching for, like that are like season based?
Totally. Like Luigi's Mansion, always a Halloween
Oh,
game,
that's a good one. Yeah.
right? And then, yeah, this one is, especially the Miles Morales one, because he, like, the beginning of the game is like he's home for, Christmas dinner. And it's just like, it's perfect to play for that time of year.
Here's a question for you. This is like kind of like straying away a little bit from the article, but it is on the Spider-Man topic. Miles Morales versus Spider-Man PS4. Do you have a preference? Do you think one's better than the other? Like, you mentioned like replaying Miles. Did you have that same love for, it's weird to say original Spider-Man when there's been like a million before, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, you know what? I think I like them both for different reasons. I think, of course, the quote original one kind of gave you the flavor of what an Insomniac Spider-Man game could feel like, and there was really no, that feeling of playing that game for the first time it was pretty special. So you always have that, kind of with the first, the original Spider-Man game, and then Miles Morales was just a great kind of next chapter, and these games are. I love them because they're so like compact. It doesn't have to be like this super lengthy game that you play for like 100 hours, but you still get this really solid, really well-rounded experience, even in this sort of more compact game. And yeah, I think it's done so well. And yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, you're right. 2023 is like right around the corner. So yeah, I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, they're just really cranking these out over here. But, you mentioned that like Microsoft not getting the Spider-Man IP was maybe the best thing for that IP. Do you think it was the best thing for Microsoft? Like, do you think they're kind of kicking themselves, being like, we could have been, Miles? Or do you just think that they were almost made the right call where it just didn't really quite work with their brand and it wouldn't have popped off?
I definitely think there's got to be some level of regret when you see like how critically acclaimed these games are, how and from a business perspective, how much money they've made, really. So yeah, I would think that even though Microsoft wasn't interested at the time, and maybe that was the right decision for them, and I'm sure they stand by that decision, there's got to be some level of regret, like, oh darn, like we really let this big one go. I mean, didn't work out or whatever, it didn't work out, but it probably doesn't feel great to see all the great sales and the critical acclaim that this game has had.
Yeah, I like to mention from Nano in the chat saying Xbox wasn't ready for that IP yet. I think I don't know, I'm not ready to agree with that take, but I think it is an interesting one.
Yeah.
In that I do think Xbox is generally on, the upswing. I don't know that they're going to get to having that killer internal IP being part of their like brand. That's like the weakest part of their brand is that element. And right now it's very much like this is a Game Pass machine and we're all here to play games and we're like Xbox and you can play them on your phone, you can play them on your PC, and they have that really down. But yeah, it's funny too, thinking of like this alternate reality of like Microsoft having a Spider-Man license, because the first thing I thought of was, which of course, and I'm going to catch myself before I actually like fully make the statement, but I'm like, well, I'm like Sunset Overdrive was great. That's Insomniac. That's an Insomniac game that was on an Xbox platform. So I really do think that they were like such a perfect pick. Like it is, obviously it's always gonna be hard to imagine stuff that, isn't, but the idea of anyone else doing it, I don't know, like Insomniac kills motion so well. Like they capture feeling in games so well that I can't imagine anyone doing it better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that is so true, that they just really capture that feeling of, I don't know, it's both like cinematic and also the movement so well, and it's so hard to do that with it being sort of a game that you're almost watching like a movie sometimes, and also, a game that you're actively like engaging in as well.
Yeah, I think, do you think they accomplished their goal of kind of going toe to toe with Arkham in terms of like critical acclaim in history? Like, do you think they kind of accomplished that?
I think so. I mean, I think, both games have great merits and definitely, unique in their own way. But in terms of like how many people know about this game, how many people love this game, bought this game, I think they've done it.
Barrett, I know you're on the ones and twos there. Feel free to chat. You're the Arkham guy, so do you think they nailed it here?
Yeah, I think they did for sure, especially in an era where the Arkham franchise was essentially done with because and left a void, right? I think Spider-Man like it came in at the kind of perfect time on the other end of the comic book spectrum to really release something that was truly special. Someone in the chat, I forget who, kind of pointed out of like Gotham Knights is releasing later this year, and this will be the first Batman game post Spider-Man. Like they're like not even thinking
Yeah.
of just the Arkham games
Yeah.
themselves. Like they have a kind of high bar to go against when it comes to modern superhero games, which is something like I never even thought of. So shout out to whoever said that. I lost you, so I'm sorry I can't properly shout you out. But yeah, that's an interesting aspect to that of DC kind of responding to what's been going on since their last comic book game, Arkham Knight, coming out 7 years ago at this point. So, I don't know if I love either the Spider-Man games as much as I do the Batman games, but for sure they're on that same pedigree.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It really has set the standard, I think, for what like those kind of IP games can be, what superhero games can be. And I'll be interested to see, like, when you bring up the person in the chat mentioning like these additional games that are coming out, like what is going to be the tone, the feel, like, and I think it's going to be a natural comparison point too, which, it kind of reminds me of like in a post like Dark Knight world, everyone wanted to like get that Dark Knight gritty feeling, and it like didn't really work for certain IPs. So I'll be interested to see like how they can form, their sort of their own identity. Or I think of like, other hero games, like even just like the Guardians games and stuff like that. It's interesting, like people trying to carve out a quality game in a space that has like a beloved IP. It's a hard thing to mash up, and it's even more impressive for that reason that Spider-Man is such the franchise that it is.
Yeah, people have such high expectations when it's like some IP that they've like grown up with. So I'm actually really interested in this Wolverine game too, because that is like something completely different and sort of falls in that same pattern like you were talking about. Like, are they going to be able to sort of mash that up in a way that is acceptable to long-term fans of Wolverine and X-Men? Like, are they going to be able to do that? So we'll see.
Yeah, like all we have really is like the grittiness of it, which I think in itself is a little bit of a deviation. But I'm just wondering, like, what is that moment to moment like movement gonna feel like? Am I just gonna be like motorcycling around? Like I'm really just not sure what to expect yet. But I'm excited, and I hope it does feel really distinct from I think what Spider-Man offers, because I think so few games can get away with it. It feels so cool to go around that no one uses your fast travel system. Like that is the biggest movement compliment that you can like land. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited to see what it is. A lot coming from that team. It'll be a good 2023, hopefully.
Sure.
But speaking of things to come, let's talk about TikTok. Already testing games as part of its service. This comes from Amelia Zollner over at IGN, who writes, as part of an ongoing trend of streaming platforms like Netflix adding games to their service, TikTok is now planning a push into the gaming world. According to a report by Reuters, TikTok is currently testing the addition of mini games to its app, starting with a pilot period in Vietnam. Anonymous sources told Reuters that the platform has plans to expand its test to other areas in Southeast Asia in the third quarter. Additionally, they claimed that TikTok's plans for gaming will eventually expand beyond minigames, signaling a new era for the video sharing app. It's unknown when or if these games being tested in Vietnam might reach a larger audience or launch to a larger audience. However, TikTok already has a few HTML5 games already available for users in the United States, including Zynga's Endless Runner Disco Loco 3D. This isn't ByteDance's, TikTok's parent company's, first foray into the gaming world. The company already owns Pixmane and Nuverse, two video game publishers. Douyin, a version of TikTok available in China, also offered games to its users since 2019. According to Reuters, TikTok will likely utilize ByteDance's library of games for its in-app games. And TikTok isn't stopping there. The app recently saw the addition of, invisible dislike buttons, and is also testing out other features like subscriptions or influencer feeds. Krista, what's your background on TikTok? I know y'all have a TikTok for the show, but are you a big user on like a personal level? And what do you think about like playing games on TikTok or gaming through TikTok?
Yeah, I have really like sunken deeply into TikTok over the last couple of years, especially during, like
your For You page. I gotta know when you open it up, what are you getting? What are you getting on there when you scroll through like 5 or 6 videos?
What's my For You page like? I'm definitely getting a lot of food videos. I love to like watch recipe videos. I get a lot of pets. So I have 2 dogs, and so of course I'm always watching like some cute puppy or cat do something weird on TikTok. Um, what else? I get like the corporate TikTok sometimes, like the funny like corporate TikTok, which
Oh,
is
like the skits, like the
yeah,
what it's like to work. Yeah, yep, I get some
yeah,
of those too.
like the TikTok skits. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I've curated my page. Like the algorithm must know me well because it really is feeding me what I want to see. So I'm doing okay. But yeah, I've really like sunk into this platform deeply since like 2020. I think during the pandemic is when a lot of people sort of started to heavily use TikTok, and
Mhm.
it definitely is such a different like social platform than any of the other ones that people typically use. Yeah, the Kit and Krista show, we do have a TikTok. It's TikTok/Kit and Krista. We post the weirder stuff there, and it's so much fun. And it has nothing to do really with like what we're talking about on the podcast, what we're doing on the show every week. It's just like random stuff that we find funny, like sounds that we find humorous, and it's really fun to like do something kind of like irreverent and like not related to pitching stuff that that the show and the podcast are doing. But yeah, this thing about the gaming though on TikTok feels odd to me. I think that the platform is maybe going into a direction where they're getting a little bit splintered. They're doing so
Mhm.
well with filling this very specific niche for people, and getting you know a lot of creators to jump onto this platform because of the way their algorithm works, because of the way the trends work on TikTok. It feels like when they start to talk about things like adding games, and then recently they added like TikTok stories, which I found to be a head scratcher. Is like,
Yeah.
don't stop it. Don't like mess with a
The
good thing.
friendification of TikTok.
Yeah,
Like it's funny because,
exactly.
and it's not even that I'm embarrassed by my TikTok because I promote it plenty of times. Like I'm at Game Honestest, like I'm everywhere. But like they always ask, like, do you want to merge your content? I'm like, no,
No,
I
I
don't know. I don't
don't.
want like some job I worked 8 million years ago, seeing like my feed and all that. And they have like the friends tab now. I mean, the updates always roll out kind of sort of randomly. So it's always hard to know like, oh, do you have this thing yet? But like having like a friends feed, I'm like, I am just here for like general creators in a way that I'm not, I think, on every other platform, which I think is what's so unique to TikTok. And that's why I'm
Right.
like, I don't need this to be like where I see my friends. Like I follow some of my friends, but I'm like they're in there with everybody else on my following list, and
Right.
I think that's really where it shines the brightest. Have you seen like much just general gaming content then on your feed? Because you mentioned your For You page is mostly food and dogs and skits and things, but do you see like
Yeah,
people talking about games or like
I
even playing like they have those
do.
weird filter games that you can play on there too?
Yeah, I do get some of those filter games, and I know Reels does that. It's like a big thing on Reels now too. So there is some like bleed over. But my favorite thing to your point is like the things that are really unique to TikTok is like discovering a random creator, discovering like a really cool video or something like that. That's what makes that kind of surprise is what makes that platform so interesting and fun, and like keeps you on it because you don't know like with the next scroll if you're going to get something that's going to surprise you and make you laugh or whatever. Um, Gaming content, I do see some on TikTok. Minecraft seems to be a big thing on TikTok. Animal Crossing, I still get a lot of that, even though, Animal Crossing certainly isn't um, as popular as it was about a year ago, but I still get some like cozy game Animal Crossing type of content on TikTok. But yeah, it does feel odd though that they're not really TikTok as a company isn't concentrating on what their lifeblood is, which is like supporting their creators and getting more creators on to do what they do best, which is to make really cool, interesting content that you and I want to see. And instead, they're doing weird stuff like adding games or adding a friendification and stuff onto the platform.
So do you think there's a world where that whole idea of quickly sort of jumping between things and discoverability could work with games? Like even if it's not maybe playing the video games, is there a world where it's like trailers or feeds? Like do you think there is viability in them even dipping into gaming? And if so, what do you think that viability might look like?
Yeah, I definitely think, you can reach a pretty different audience on TikTok. than with some of the other social platforms. And so there could be like a world where you could, find new people to become interested in games because of TikTok. So, but I think to make that work, you would have to have like really curated like content that is made for that platform. You can't just roll like a vertical video trailer and have it like take off on TikTok. That's not what the platform really is about. It's about, these trends and these creators. So, there could be a world where it's very creator driven and it's more so like, shorter bites of what we see on YouTube, like reaction videos or, quick unboxings or quick gameplay videos or challenges. I can see that working more so on TikTok and with gaming content and being something that people would want to see versus it like being, straight up repurposing stuff from your other channels onto that platform.
Right. Or like a place to play. I would definitely try it, but the idea of bouncing even quick, like it seems a little overwhelming to like bounce between games so fast. But at the same time, like if you would have pitched me years ago on, and obviously there's been other platforms that have bite-sized content. It's not like TikTok is the first bite-sized content platform, but I probably would have also thought that was too much or too short, or even like some of their expansion into longer form videos. Like at first I'm like, oh, I don't want anything more than the 60 seconds, but I'm like, the 1 and 3 is kind of nice. Now the 10 I think is my line. I don't know. I don't think I like the 10. And then
10 is a lot long.
People were like, if you do a 10-minute video and you tell me to go to part 2, I'm uninstalling the app.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm never going to see part 2. Sorry.
Really quick before we move on, Nathan, the viewer in the chat says, my TikTok is just Elden Ring, which reminds me, are you still in on Elden Ring? Have you, again, I'm behind on the podcast, so I don't know if you've like beaten it or are still playing it.
I beat it. Aren't you proud of me?
I am. First Souls game, right?
My first Souls game. I could not believe it. I talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but like when I first started playing Elden Ring, I was like, there's no way I have to I'm only going to play like 1 hour of this game, and then I'm probably going to stop because I won't be able to do it. Here I am 2.5 months later and like 100 hours later, beat the game. I can't believe it. It's awesome.
Nice. Are you out now? Did you finish it and then walk away? Or are you going to like keep living in there? Are you going to go for like the platinum? What platform are you playing on actually?
PS5.
Are you going for like the platinum? Are you like a trophy hunter?
No, I can't do it. I'm not a completionist.
You could do it. Maybe you don't want to, which is fair.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I can go back to that world. Maybe there's like other quests, big quests, side quests I didn't do yet. So maybe like in a couple months, but I definitely needed a break from it after I struggled through that last boss. So now I'm like onto other things and like I've quote moved on with my life. But I think about that game a lot. Like I miss it. And I did consume a lot of like video content for that game. I did see Elden Ring content on my TikTok channels. And I definitely was like watching a lot of like Elden Ring videos and stuff like that. So I can see, sort of those like quick bites about sort of things that you see or things everyone collectively experiences in Elden Ring, on TikTok. I can relate to that for sure.
Oh, I also appreciate Whirl in the chat saying Elden Lord Krista, your new title.
Yeah,
congratulations.
I love it. Thank you.
And before we continue on, I want to remind y'all that you can go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames where you can get the show ad free. And speaking of ads, let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. I love MeUndies from head to toe, all over my body. If you don't believe me, of course, right now, I'm wearing the MeUndies shirt. You can tell by the little tag going on right there, right? I got the MeUndies lounge shorts going on. Of course, I got the undies, and then boom, MeUndies socks, baby. That's how we do out here at Kinda Funny. I love being soft head to toe in the micro-modal fabric. You already know all about that, but if you don't, let's face it, summer's sweaty, but your butt doesn't have to be. With MeUndies light and breathable micro-modal fabric, you can stay comfy and cool all summer long. They have super fun seasonal prints and tons of styles to choose from, but if you just like classic black, that's totally cool too. They got a bunch of just bold colors for you to go for. They have super fun seasonal prints, tons of styles, and sizes extra small to 4XL, so you can bring the beach to your butt without ever leaving your living room. MeUndies has a great offer for all of you first-time purchasers. You can get 15% off. If you sign up for their free-to-join membership, you can apply that 50% off to their already discounted membership prices. To get 15% off your first order and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/kindafunny. That's MeUndies.com/kindafunny. Tell them Tim Getty sent you.
Now let's talk about more classic PS Plus premium titles that have been cited on the PlayStation Store with added features. This comes from Hiran Cryer over at Games Radar, who writes, more classic PlayStation games have appeared on the PlayStation Network ahead of the PlayStation Plus relaunch. As chronicled over the last few days by Resetera, I never really know. It's been so many years, and I still don't think I read it right. Resetera.
You got it.
Users, 2 brand new PlayStation games have popped up on the PSN Store. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, and Ridge Racer 2 are now both officially on the PSN Store, with both having received a special PS1 emulation tag. However, the store listings for both games let slip some brand new features. It appears each backwards compatible game will have a CRT filter available on top of a rewind function, brand new PlayStation trophies, which was just recently confirmed, by Ben last week, and I think Tim and Stella had touched on that, I think, last week as well. Upscaling features for modern TVs, screenshots, and more. With this, we're beginning to get the idea of how the classic PlayStation titles in the PS Plus collection for premium and extra tier subscribers will work. Earlier this month, PlayStation finally pulled back the curtain on which classic games will be included with the revamped PlayStation Plus service when it launches next month in June, and offerings were admittedly slim. There were just 10 classic PlayStation games listed, including Ape Escape, Hot Shots Golf, Tekken 2, Jumping Flash, and Worms World Party, to name a few. Thanks to new listings today, though, we have a better idea of the features that'll be available to complement these older games, as the likes of the Rewind feature and CRT could bolster these classic PlayStation titles. So, Krista, I gotta know, when you're hitting up these retro games on modern consoles, are you using, or even just new games, because some games also have this as an option, like Loop Hero had the CRT filter. Are you a CRT filter person? Let's start there. Let's get it all out in the open.
I'm not really,
Okay,
but you know what?
Right?
You know what?
Same.
Are you not either? Okay, good. I'm glad
No,
I'm not
it
the only one.
makes it harder to see. I do get like the nostalgia, but I'm
The
like,
nostalgia play,
it's nostalgia for a time when I didn't have a better TV, which I
Yeah.
think I'm okay,
Yeah, your eyes have changed. Now you need the 4K.
Yeah.
So I'm all about using the modern technology. But the feature I do really like is the rewind feature.
Mm-hmm.
And I have actually used that quite a lot. Sometimes I play these older games and I'm like, how did I play this as a kid without any of these like safety net features? Because it's kind of impossible now. Maybe we're just spoiled. I don't know. Maybe our skills have deteriorated with age. I have no
But
idea.
you beat Elden Ring, so we know that's not true. It's I don't know what it is, though, but you're absolutely right, because I even just like, and this isn't a game that's on Nintendo's service, so it was played through means I don't know of, because I only follow the law here. I only play properly released games, but other people I know, other deviants I know, may dip into other means. And I I know my boyfriend was playing Metroid Fusion, which is like one of my favorite games ever, through means I'm unaware of. Right,
Right, sure.
And he had some of those like extra features of either, I don't think he had a rewind, but he had probably like extra saves or something.
Mm-hmm.
And even with all that, like he kind of was really challenged by that game, and he's generally like pretty skilled. And I'm like, yeah, what if I told you I was like a child, like a smaller child, right? I'm a small adult, a small child, beating that game straight up, like couldn't even see the screen because of the sun. And I don't know how I did it, because I love that game, but I'm afraid to go back because like some of them are just so brutal that I think you're right. Like the rewind feature, it helps since they're not remaking the game and adjusting like maybe some of the saves or some of the difficulty. That rewind helps you get through some stuff that maybe you don't want to have to get through on your own.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is kind of weird that we were able to do it. But then I also think about the kids nowadays that are playing some of these games for the first time with all of these great, features to help them through it. It's like, is that a good or bad thing? Are they not like sort of going through the gauntlet like we did as kids?
True experience.
That's true, exactly. Like, are you honing your skills so later you can play Elden Ring in like 30-31 and beat it? Because you played like Mario the regular way.
Skill transfer, and that's the worst part about like being good at some games. Like I can play really difficult platformers, but then I'm like, oh man, I have to parry in this game.
Oh, you and I are so opposite.
Rolling. Like, oh man,
I can't play a platformer to save my life.
Really?
So, yeah. So this is where, maybe it's just up, personal talent, personal, I don't know, personal way of playing. But yes, these classic games, I'm glad to revisit them. I'm very glad to have all of these new features to make revisiting them easier and more fun and less frustrating. And it's great to have them. So keep it coming.
Yeah, I think it just adds additional like incentives to check them out again. And it just, I don't know, it's kind of nice. Obviously, like I never want to disparage the amount of work that goes into doing really anything with a game, whether it's porting it, remaking it, remastering it, adding in these things, adding in the trophies. Like there is labor behind all of these things, but at the same time, like it feels nice that people did that additional work because it shows, I don't know, I guess extra care going into these like classic games, and it, you know, makes it also easier to go back and enjoy them where, yeah, maybe you do need the rewind feature to get through some of these, or you would just like enjoy it a little bit more. Honestly, in general, games with rewind features, I'm kind of about it. Like I love like Forza Horizon, and like, if I'm not gonna lie, I rewind through like when you like watch me slowly back up through like 8 signs I knocked over and like I'm all off the line. I'm like, go further back just to kind of reset it. Yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier. I do want to ask, what is your ideal way to play retro games / like what are some of the ways you dabble, you know, ideally legally, but feel free to get arrested after the show if you'd like to.
Here comes the ninjas through the window again. Just kidding.
It's Night Trap all over again. Like it just reminds me of my childhood.
I definitely, you know, really rely on things like this, like the PlayStation Plus services or like the Nintendo Switch Online. Like I really do rely. I have no idea how people are able to get these, have these other ways to play these games. I'm just not like skilled enough in that area to even like fathom how I would do that. So I rely on, you know, these platforms to like almost spoon feed these retro games to me, which I think it's really important that, you know, these games still exist in some way. Like nowadays, it's just so impossible to find some of the games that we played as kids and enjoyed as kids. So if you wanted to like, you know, relive those memories or you know, have a way to play them again, I'm really glad that there are these services that make it possible for us to do that. So yeah, that's really my preferred way to consume these games. It was so funny. I was on a plane yesterday coming back from a trip, and I was like, I had my Switch, and I was like, I kind of don't feel like playing anything else except for Super Mario World, you know, and like to be able to play that game that's like my favorite game of all time on a plane, like with my Switch as an adult, it was like, this is cool. Yeah. This is awesome, you know? So I'm glad these things exist, and for like dummies like me that can't figure out other ways to get it, it's like, this is the way it's gonna be for me.
It is a pain going through like more I'm big of like the weird like mashup of things. Like I like to use modern tech to enjoy very old tech. So like I have like the GCHD, like the little like adapter for the GameCube to like get it to have like where I can plug like an HDMI cable to it. I have the same one for the N64. So it's like, this is the most, everything outside of like, not that I'm against going in and like modding or adjusting the console. It's just that tends to be more expensive or extra work. Like, I know a lot of people like doing that themselves. Like, oh yeah, like I'm going to crack that thing open and like start tinkering around. I'm not going to do all that. Like I am barely gonna start approaching like Lego. You know what I mean? Like I can't do this at scale. And then I'm like, it doesn't, like, no, I can't do it. So I like doing stuff like that, getting like modded older consoles or things. Like I really want to get like a new like modded GBA that's backlit. You know, the analog pocket drops. A lot of people like that. So I enjoyed doing that because I like using like the old hardware, like the old cartridges and stuff. But yeah, at the same time, like I definitely, if I can play it modern, I probably just will do that. Like I have, you know, old carts like the N64, but if it's on the Switch service, like I'm going to play it that way. Like I don't feel the need to replay Yoshi's Island on like the SNES Junior I had as a kid when I can just play it, you know, on my Switch. So I think having those options is really good. And it also really helps too with how much stuff can become more expensive sometimes. Like the idea of, you know, I have a freaking Mario 64 cart that was like, I don't know, had to at least been like $60 or $80 because it came in the box. And like, I like having that as a collector, but like, it's nice to have a way to play that game that doesn't involve spending a bunch of money and investing in all this stuff that you're only going to use for this one specific thing. So yeah, before we move on, I do want to know though too, for the PlayStation new revamp stuff, PlayStation Plus, as I've been calling it. I don't know why they didn't go with that
That's a good name. I like that.
Right? It's like no confusion.
Rolls off the tongue, guys.
The plus too, yeah. What tier are you getting? Or are you upgrading from like base PlayStation Plus, assuming that you have that?
I might upgrade. I know that this is controversial because people are like, why would you do that without like really knowing what's coming? I mean, like, I feel like it might be worth it just to see, what that
Yeah.
offer looks like. I don't love that, they're sort of slow trickling out these these more retro games and not giving people a full picture of what that looks like. That feels a little NSO-ish to me,
hmm
where it's like, just tell us the roster. You obviously know it. Just, tell us so we can make a decision. But yeah, I'm not opposed to upgrading, really. I feel like right now I play my PlayStation probably the most out of all of the three
hmm
consoles. So yeah, I'm kind of in on it. So yeah.
Yeah, same. I think I will probably just go for the highest tier just to not to remove the questions of it. And then also, like, I can always use the excuse of, oh, well, I'm informing the audience, even though I'm like, I
Exactly.
just was probably going to do this anyway.
I need this.
At least for yeah, I need this. I need it for work.
For your
I
job. Yeah.
yeah, this is a work expense. Anything's a work expense if you think about it enough. Anyway, but yeah, I think I'll just do that just to kind of see, like, what is that first year like? And I have a lot of fun being an
Exactly.
early adopter, even though early adopters always get burned, but like I enjoy that burn. I'm like, I'm part of the community, we're here, we're hanging out,
Yeah.
we're figuring it out. For
Exactly.
most stuff, not everything. But speaking of retro games, though, I do want to do our last story, which is a bit of a PSA. This is last day of Wii U and 3DS funds coming from Victoria Kennedy at Eurogamer, and I've seen this a couple different places kind of shouting this out and being like, I tested it, don't worry, it still works just today. So a short PSA for those who still use their 3DS and Wii U family of systems. Today is the last day that you can use a credit card to add funds to the account. So again, this is like a slow roll, whole clarification. So on Nintendo's customer support page regarding the upcoming closure of the Wii U and 3DS eShops to new purchases, it states, as of May 23rd, today, it will no longer be possible to use a credit card to add funds to those accounts. And they also mentioned that, like, hey, we checked this at the time of writing, it's good. I also Googled a few other places that were like, we just did it, it's still good. So definitely try and do that if you're interested in doing it. And then I also want to mention the article closes out saying, meanwhile, from August 29th, users will no longer be able to use Nintendo eShop cards to add funds. So it's that slow roll where, like, today is the last day to, like, put your credit card in and, like, add money. After that, you can still use the cards. But then after that, and it keeps continuing. And then they put after this time, that August 29th date, however, you'll still be able to redeem download codes. This is possible up until late March 2023. And then after that, I guess we say our final goodbyes. So as we the sun starts to set on the 3DS and the Wii U. Obviously, this first, or like mostly, impacts digital because technically, you can still put in these like old cartridges and things, or discs, I guess, for the Wii U's case. But digital's obviously really big. So obviously, like, again, like the stuff like Pocket Jockey or like Box Boy, if you're like really want those games, those are probably the first ones you want to prioritize. But I want to take this time too just to talk about what some of our favorite games are from those family of consoles.
Oh, you just named two of my favorite ones. Pocket Jockey is a low-key underrated game.
I haven't played it yet. I'm gonna download
What?
it. Yeah, I know. It's like, so it was like in that. I remember listening to NBC and they were like so heavy into Pocket Jockey. But don't worry, I didn't have time before the show, but I brought out the 3DS. I charged it. Also, shout out to how fast this charged and turned on, because, like, no shade, but my PS Vita, I tried turning it back on and it's like a several hour process. But yeah, Pocket Jockey. Tell me about Pocket Jockey.
Oh my gosh, Game Freak game, which is weird, and Pool at the same time. But yeah, it is the weirdest game for me to describe to you. It is like a card game with horse races. Very cute. The horses are cute, but weirdly
Their heads
addictive.
are giant.
Their heads are huge. They're very cartoony. You can like up their stats by getting these different cards, and I mean, I'm doing a terrible job selling this game to you. Just try it. You'll love it. It's really, really fun. It was very surprising that, like, this game collectively captured our hearts. But
I really feel like, it's funny because, like, I know some people, this is probably the first time hearing about Pocket Jockey, but yeah, like, the only thing I know about Pocket Jockey is that everyone's like, you got to play Pocket Jockey. It's actually really good. It's a fun, like, kind of deeper cut. And it's definitely one of the more, I think, interesting games that at least caught my eye looking through people's, like I did the quick classic Google of 3DS games digital only, and it's kind of a weird hodgepodge of things. The idea of the best digital only ones. Like I saw someone shout out like a Picross version of like Twilight Princess or something is on there.
That's
I don't
right.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Rhythm Heaven in the chat being shot as digital only because I think it got a physical release but not in the US, so that's kind of that line. So yeah, definitely put in the chat what your favorite digital games are, especially. Yeah, Phoenix Wright, some of those games get shouted out too oftentimes for digital. I was definitely not very digital during the era of the 3DS or the Wii U, so I do want to hit up those games. But other stuff that I love from that era, there's, again, a lot of these are physical, so you can, or all of them are physical because I have them physically. I, of course, loved Brain Age. Still, I feel like I have only gotten dumber in the post Brain Age era, and there's nothing that's revitalized my mind since then. But I love the 3DS genuinely, and I had a lot of fun. I would definitely encourage you guys to go out there and like hit up a retro game store if you have access to one and just see what you can find. Because like I got a bunch of games that I've actually never played for my 3DS from a friend that I want to check out. Games like Devil Survivor, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, Electroplankton, 999. Tryon Cube, I think, is currently in the console right now because I was like, I'll play this, and then I just still hadn't. But for stuff that I had hit up, Luigi's Bowser's Inside Story. I really love Pokemon Sun and Moon. I think is still one of the best Pokemon games.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
Top
3.
You dance with the Pokemon in that game. I feel like we
can't say no to that, right?
We can't understate that. But yeah, what about you? What are some other Fire Emblem? Yep.
Fire Emblem Awakening is a great game. What else is there? There's Professor Layton, which was one of my favorite series. Some of those games are on the Switch, I think, or some of the Professor Layton games are on Switch. But the original DS and 3DS ones are really good. I was just thinking about Elite Beat Agents over the weekend, and I'm like, where's the sequel to that game? Like, when do we get to see that again? There's a ton of really good 3DS DS games. Yeah, it's a little sad to see it sort of really coming to an end, and empty your bank accounts, I guess, onto your credit card so you can get all the games you want before today.
Do you think there's a chance that we'll see like 3DS games on the Switch or like a 3DS section in NSO, or do you think that's too modern? Like, what are your speculations on that?
I wonder if they would, but I also wonder how they would do it with the dual screen, and if that's hard,
If you'd have to turn the Switch sideways and use one of those third-party configurations.
I do have that configuration for,
right? Yes, that company would clean up if they ever did the sideways.
I know.
Games.
Oh my gosh, that's a feat though. That's not like a straight ported over kind of situation. You would have to like change the layout of the game. So I wonder if that is just too much.
To what degree does that do you feel like that's a hindrance, or does that irk you for Nintendo? Because I have that like internal debate all the time where part of me really loves how almost every like Nintendo generation, it's so distinctive that like you can't really cross them over. But then it becomes such a con when like you want to play anything anywhere else because it just feels like those games so closely live on those devices or with those controls.
Yeah, it's hard because I think about that all the time too. I'm like, how come this game isn't on Switch? Or how come they can't port this over on Switch? And sometimes it feels like a totally missed opportunity, especially like when you think about the Wii U era and how like, there's so many great games on that system that no one played because no one bought a Wii U. So it's like, what a missed opportunity not to have that come on Switch. And obviously some of them have already, but it's tough I feel like it's tough from a business perspective when it's not a straight, like easy port. Then does it like make sense to dip?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, this game.
Share it with the B-roll, Wind Waker HD. Like,
you knew it read my mind.
For the love of God, please.
Yes. Let's collectively send out the manifestation.
I don't want to go to Blessing's house to pick up the Kinda Funny Wii U just to replay this game. Please, for the love of God, just port it to Switch.
Here's what I'm scared of, though, with the idea of that port. I am horrified that they will port that game over, but it won't be the HD version. It'll be the GameCube version.
No.
Where they'll, like, you still gotta get
Say
it.
that.
Because isn't that what Nintendo would do though? Like, I know I feel bad saying that, but like, and then but like, isn't that what they would do? I just feel like
They're weird, so.
it hurt me a lot, and I just don't know why. Yeah, no, that is absolutely the gem on. And again, obviously these you can't do these physically, so like, still go out and get those. But yeah, like this is the shining star that is left in the dust for some reason for I think the Wii U's library, because they've gotten a lot of the other big hits here. Like I brought out my collection. A lot of these games are either represented or like they have sequels, so it kind of doesn't really make sense.
Yeah,
I'd love to see, even though this got a port to 3DS, Yoshi's Crafted World or Yoshi's Woolly World, because Crafted is on.
Yoshi's Woolly World is great. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm playing through that still. Like that's actually why I had my Wii U so handy for today. It wasn't just that I have it there all the time. I replugged it in to play Woolly World. It's so good. It's like one of the best Yoshi games, and like many games on the Wii U, I feel like it doesn't get as talked about because the Wii U was not incredibly popular. So yeah, oh my God, Wind Waker, just the cloud version. Why are y'all putting this into the world? But yeah,
we need it. We need it for sure.
The idea of the 3DS and the Wii U getting a new life on the Switch is so far away. If I want to know what's coming to mom and grab shops today, where would I look?
You will go to the official list of upcoming software across each and every platform as listed by the Kinda Funny Games Daily Show host each and every weekday.
Out today on Steam, we have Godspeed Defender.
Yeah. Don't
I forgot to
forget
add.
the jingle.
I know. It's like I have such good runs on here. I know. Can we get some damage ants in the chat, please? Thank you. This is like something where I know what you're thinking. How is it that you like learn this and then periodically I forget it? Here's the thing. When I usually make this doc, I add in like, don't do that. But then sometimes I forget to add it in because this is a shared, inside baseball. This is like a blank doc template that like I copy over and I like make it the way I make it. So yeah, I appreciate the dammits, the emotes. But out today is God Defender on Steam in 1001 Jigsaw Home Suite Home 2 on Steam. We were absolutely dying without Zach Weisen's roundup. I don't know how he was getting those, but we're going to get together. New dates. I do want to shout out that I think the pronunciation is it Chia? Delayed to 2023. That's that open world sandbox inspired game inspired by New Caledonia. It kind of has like a very like exploratory and sort of whimsical look to it. I believe this pops up in a couple of showcases. But yeah, delayed until 2023. But this is definitely one that I have on my, list that I'm looking forward to. And it has, the climbing. Definitely, I think some people making the kind of Breath of the Wild-esque comparisons with like some of the, I guess, elements that you kind of see in here. But it seems like a really cool one. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer on that title. Rounding out, jump into your wrongs real fast. Don't really have to, some shout outs on like extra things that are popping up with trophies, which yeah, keep an eye out on those rumors and PSN things. But I think we're actually pretty good. Yeah, one Professor Layton game on Switch, but it doesn't feature the professor. It's Layton Mystery Jury. Thank you, Nano,
That's
for the
right.
deep
Yes.
Professor Layton cuts. But yeah, that's basically it, other than, shout outs or like extra rumors and things for us to dig into, which we'll have plenty of other times and shows to unpack all of that because tomorrow's hosts are Tam and Gary Witta. So stay tuned for that on a Tuesday. Barrett, do you know what's happening after this on the stream? By chance?
After this is one SnowBikeMike hanging out with one Kevin Coelho on the calendar. And again, this could change in 2 minutes. They have Valheim or Portal 2, which two very different vibes. So we'll see what they stick with. Maybe they'll just fall back on some Fortnite because I know those two love Fortnite as well. But it's gonna be either way a fun time with Kevin and Mike. I know for those of you anticipating KFW, don't worry, there will be another KFW this week, just not today.
Thanks. And you can catch that stream later if you subscribe to youtube.com/kindafunnyplays. For now, this has been Kinda Funny Games Daily, where each and every weekday live right here on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames we run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. We have a Patreon post show for those who are subbed to the silver level of patreon.com/kindafunnygames. So stick around for that. Otherwise, until next time, Game Daily.